US President Donald Trump said on Thursday that Kazakhstan had joined the Abraham Accords. These were the landmark deals that he had sealed in his first term to try and normalize ties between Israel and several Muslim countries. But there is a twist in the story. Kazakhstan already has full diplomatic relations with Israel. This move shows how countries are finding creative ways to hand Trump political victories at a lower cost to themselves. Trump later said on social media that he had held a phone call with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel and President Tokayev of Kazakhstan. Trump declared that Kazakhstan would be the first of many countries to join the Abraham Accords in his second term. In fact, Trump went on to say that the Accords were a club of strength.
Some of the countries we're talking about and some of the countries represented here are going to be joining the Abraham Accords. The Abraham Accord, and that those announcements will be made over the next little while. The Abraham Accords are very sought after right now. We're going to be announcing some very important countries that are joining, and for Jared and for Steve Witkoff, we appreciate the great job you've done. This evening, I'm also delighted to report that Kazakhstan has officially agreed, and that's official now, as of about 15 minutes ago. A tremendous country with a tremendous leader has officially joined the Abraham Accords.
Kazakhstan is the first Central Asian country to join the Abraham Accords, which initially established diplomatic ties between Israel and two Gulf Arab states, which were Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates. This happened in the year 2020 in Trump's first term. Trump has long wanted to have Saudi Arabia join the Abraham Accords, but that doesn't seem to be the case anytime soon. Certainly it's not going to happen until the war in Gaza is over once and for all. For Prince Mohammed of Saudi Arabia, the kingdom's de facto ruler, establishing relations with Israel is a distant goal that will probably take years and not months. In fact, it's also the only leverage that the entire Arab world has with the Trump administration for reining in Israel's excesses in the region. And this is something that the Saudi Crown Prince knows. In an interview ahead of the White House meeting with President Trump, Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Tokayev described the significance of the signing of the Abraham Accords as a purely economic one, which means that countries like Kazakhstan are using this to get favorable trade agreements from Trump, not necessarily looking at it as some kind of a diplomatic extension or olive branch to Israel.
You are the great leader, statesman, sent by heaven to bring common sense and traditions that we all share and value back into the United States policy, either domestic or foreign. Therefore, millions of people in so many countries are so grateful to you.
Thursday's Central Asia summit at the White House was a notable moment for the region of 5 former Soviet republics. The leaders of these 5 countries have never held a joint gathering with an American president in Washington. The countries' governments are eager for American investment and American technology. In part, they want this as a counterweight to the dominance of Russia and China in their region. The meeting with Trump will not go unnoticed in the Kremlin at a time when Trump has called off his proposed summit with Putin. For the White House, the meeting highlights the Trump administration's attempt to build ties with countries beyond America's traditional European or Asian allies. Previous administrations have had human rights concerns in the Central Asian republics, which former American presidents had tried to regularly address in a region which is largely autocratic. In the past, America would have been focused on human rights and ethical business practices. Now it seems like all of that has fallen by the wayside. The Trump White House seems to be interested only in cutting deals, adding further to the legend of Trump the deal maker. And Central Asia has welcomed that approach. The Kazakh President Tokayev has said that his country was discussing how to establish cooperation in the field of critical minerals with the United States. They also signed off on a memorandum of cooperation in rare earths. Rare earths have now become a crucial point of leverage in the trade war between America and China. In fact, Trump, in his recent trip to Asia, signed rare earth agreements with a host of countries from Thailand to Cambodia and Malaysia. The US is very keen on diversifying its rare earth supply chains after it saw China use rare earths as an instrument of leverage in the ongoing trade negotiations. The Kazakhstan president also added that a big deal would be announced very soon for a joint venture to develop Kazakhstan's deposits of tungsten. Tungsten is a wear and tear resistant metal, which is very important in the manufacturing of weapons, and tungsten, a large proportion of tungsten deposits and also its extraction and refining happens in China. So China is a key source of tungsten. Now, the Trump administration is opening doors to Kazakhstan to replace China in a way. The Trump administration so far has shown more pragmatism from a political point of view than the previous Biden administration had done. Former President Joe Biden had held a summit with the 5 Central Asian leaders in 2023, but he did so on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York rather than at the White House. This was the first time that all 5 Central Asian leaders were hosted in the White House. The Kazakh president also praised Trump for his more accommodating approach to Russia, with which Kazakhstan shares a 5,000-mile border. Kazakhstan is a close Russian ally, but Tokayev has sought to stay neutral on the Russia-Ukraine war. In fact, the Kazakh president met with President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine in September and called for an early end to the war. Tokayev also said that he believed a ceasefire in Ukraine was possible and that Kazakhstan was prepared to host negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. But he also contended that President Putin of Russia would not relax his territorial demands, which means that the ball is really in Ukraine and Zelensky's court. But one thing is clear, that just as Russia is trying to make inroads into America's backyard, the Trump administration also wants to show that it too has friends in Russia's backyard.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.